use later. And welcome everyone. It's so nice to see everyone. Hi, Roberta. We just did our little rain dance here of joy. Feeling really, really good about that. I guess I wanted to just pop up our agenda real quick to remind everyone of what we're doing today. Because of the rain, I feel like we have this great opportunity to kind of change gears away from immediate fire danger and think a little bit more about outreach and education. So that's what we decided to make the main bulk of this meeting's conversation about. But yeah, so we'll do a little check-in, see if anyone has trouble with Zoom. And then we'll go through our regular updates, which we haven't done in a couple of months. So I'm really excited to hear what you all have been doing. And then we'll get a quick update on the meetings that have been happening around the PG&E settlement funds for vegetation management. The steering committee will kind of talk about some projects and tasks that we've been working on. Get your thoughts on those. And then we'll go into our kind of outreach related topics, including the newsletter, upcoming workshops and house meetings, that video project that has been delayed and hopefully will come back on board. And then the idea of maybe doing a virtual conference in the spring. So we have tons to talk about. Oh, and then after noon, kind of after the official end of this meeting, we will have Allison Schichtel actually is going to be joining us this afternoon, kind of last minute, to talk a little bit about the map that Kim shared over our listserv a couple days ago, showing the wildfire impacts to different vegetation communities over the last 4 years. So she'll talk about how they made that map and what it means. So if you have a chance to stay afternoon for another 15 minutes, then we'll get to dive into that together. And if not, this whole thing is recorded, so we can you can see it after the fact on YouTube. Okay.
Thanks again for that in the agenda. The urgency is that Allison is about 7 months pregnant, so we're going to be losing her to maternity leave in a little bit. So it's a good opportunity to hear what she has to say about the maps.
Right on. So great. So let me just ask: is anyone having a hard time with Zoom? It looks like everyone is doing good. I see we have a couple of phones on the line. So just a note that if you need to mute yourself, you can do *6, and then to speak, you can press *6 to unmute yourself. I haven't actually tried that myself. Does everyone agree that that works? Anyone who's ever done it before? Does it seem to work? I hope so. And if you feel too nervous, or if you feel like if you did that and you wouldn't know how to unmute yourself, you can always hang up and call back in, and you'll be unmuted and able to speak. Okay. Great. All right, cool. Well, let's do our check-ins. I'll just start. I'll call names just to make it easy on everyone. And Devin, you're the first one. Oh, and Devin, you're on mute. Sorry.
I haven't been in these meetings in I think this is my first one since the coronavirus started. So I don't have much of a check-in. I'm just here to kind of catch up on what everyone's up to.
Okay, well, it's really good to see you. And thanks for checking in. Ellie Inslee.
Hi. I don't personally have anything, but I'm speaking for Jason Mills, who couldn't be here. He has another event that he had to go to. But the Ecology Center has been doing these toxic runoff containment workshops that have been really successful out on St. Helena Road for the glass fire. And then they're also just, doing a lot of that work. His team has been doing a lot of that work themselves. And also Sugarloaf was really badly impacted, not by the fires, but by the five or six blade wide dozer lines. So we're applying for some 319H grants to repair those. And let me see if he has anything else here. He sent me a text. Oh, we're in the planning stages for larger erosion and sediment control work in the next phase after the toxics containment. So yeah, that's what he has to say.
Great, thank you. Kim Batchelder.
Hi, folks. It's great to see everybody's faces out there. It's really great to have us meet like this once a month. And so it's really nice to hear the different updates. From the Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District, we've been able to protect the Tor property, which is about 515 acres out in West County. It is a beautiful property. It has some old growth redwoods, stretches from the Russian River just to the south of Monte Rio and it has a very important linkage to things like the Mendocino Redwood property. It's also been protected over to the coastal range that hooks up to Wright Hill Ranch. And so it's just going to be another addition to a community that doesn't have a lot of tourism right there in that area. So Regional Parks sees it as a real kind of catalyst for investment, for tourism in that area, as well as to hopefully bolster that economy a little bit more. So I'm really excited to see that property protected. And so I think that's probably good enough for today.
Awesome, thanks. Anais? And why don't you introduce yourself too, because I don't think I've met you before.
Right. Hi, my name is Anais Morris. I am a program analyst for Taking Action for Living Systems. I work very closely with Dee, and so I'm a new member, and I will just be listening.
Okay, great, thanks, welcome. Roberta McIntyre?
Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm Roberta McIntyre. I'm the president and CEO of Fire Safe Sonoma, and I'm relatively new to the group, so I'll mostly be listening. So anyway, that's all.
Okay, great to have you. Ivan O'Neill?
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I am a brand new member, general public, just pretty much interested in forests and the ones that we have in our community up in Sonoma. And I've been interacting with some folks on the Joy Ridge community and supporting some of the work going on up there.
Sweet, thanks Ivan, great to have you. And Lynn Garrick.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. I just want to say a shout out and thank you to Sonoma Ecology Center for all the work they've been doing up in the Mark West watershed. It's been fabulous. We've had huge community response. We've had volunteers from Pepperwood. It's really working very, very well. And compared to what we experienced in 2017, this is like just night and day wonderful. So that's what I mostly wanted to say. For the there was a mention about dozer lines, and we did have CAL FIRE come out here after they put dozer lines in our area and had them come back, and they do maybe not everything you would want to see done, but they certainly do take care of the dozer lines that they put in. And they did, again, more than we expected them to do, because we met with them and talked about, you know, could you also flash out of the creek? Could you also do this? And they did as they went through. So I don't want to forget that when it comes to repairing dozer lines, if CAL FIRE put them in, they have a certain responsibility to fix them. And then the last thing I do want to talk about when we get to it on the agenda is the PG&E settlement, and hear what the other meetings have discussed, because we had a neighborhood captain or block captain meeting just the other night, and there were some things in that meeting that surprised me about how the PG&E settlement funds are going forward. So I'll wait until we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lynn. Zach Michelonis.
Hello, everyone. I'm a new member. I just joined up. I recently moved to the area after being away for 12 years, and I'm just interested to see what folks are doing and how the community is interacting with our lands. Yeah, so I'll mostly be listening. Good to meet you.
Great, cool. Hi, Shanti. How are you doing?
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. So no major updates since last I saw you a month ago. Just across our stewardship team with Sonoma Land Trust, we're continuing with all of our defensible space work and fuels reduction clearing on a multitude of properties. And so that work kind of continues like between the fire season and beyond now that the rains have come. Let's see, I guess one update is that I happened to have the opportunity to tag along with a forester tour of Fred Ufrat's property a couple of weeks ago, and that was really, really interesting. And I was really grateful for that opportunity. And I think that that landscape probably looked a lot like our Little Black Mountain Preserve up near Cazadero, and it burned pretty severely. And so, you know, the conversation was really interesting around kind of what to do with all the dead hardwoods, all the resprouting trees, and like the dead Douglas firs, and the redwood trees all look like pipe cleaners or like bottle brush trees. So kind of looking at tree health associated with those, with the redwoods. So just a very interesting tour, and I encourage folks to kind of continue the conversation with Fred as he works on post-fire management of his property. That's it.
Totally interesting. Thank you. Brianna Bless.
Good morning, sunshines. So for those who haven't met me, I'm the natural resources professor at Santa Rosa Junior College, and we have a slew of scintillating things going on. So we put in a proposal to the county about the PG&E funds for vegetation management. And primarily what we're hoping to do is get some veg management boot camps going at Shown, our 360 something odd acre property out on River Road, and get people trained in hand tools, chainsaws, etc. And also partnering with people in the county that are already doing prescribed burn trainings. We would also like to extend the invitation if you want to double the efforts and also burn down our forest at Shown, which badly needs to be burned. So if you want, I'll type my email in the chat box if you want to reach out to me if you're doing prescribed burns in the area, because we're definitely interested in partnering with you guys and getting more people trained and making that knowledge available. So yes, those are some of the things we've got going on at the JC.
Super cool. Awesome. Let's see. Arthur's next, but I think he's away. Oh, here he is.
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi, Adriana. Hi, everybody. I was a little late because I was working on some fire-resistant fencing. So, in the theme of these days, I don't have a huge amount to report other than I'm still cranking away on the Cal Fire project, which for anybody that's not hasn't heard about it, it's looking at. I'm a historical ecologist, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know me. So I'm working on a big project with Pepperwood with CAL FIRE funds, looking at fire and vegetation history in Sonoma, Napa, and Lake counties. So, and lately I've been looking at the Walbridge fire area and the area around Guerneville, and looking at the historical fires and the vegetation in that area. So still very preliminary, but I got a new computer and a new GIS program, so I've been getting up to speed on that. That took a while, but that's about it. But nice to be here.
So cool. Thanks. Morning, Caroleon. Are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Caroleon from Permit Sonoma Fire Prevention Division. And we've been very busy writing lots of grants, trying to get grants implemented on the road. We're submitting a large grant to FEMA's BRIC program that will address structure hardening, defensible space, and community fuel breaks in a couple of selected areas throughout the county. That one's in process. We have several that are funded and in early implementation stage, including an update of the Sonoma County CWPP, which is rolling along very nicely with the help of Mark Tuckman and an awesome GIS team. So things are moving forward.
Awesome. And Krelak, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Let's see. So I'm Ann Krelak with Sonoma Water. I'm a senior environmental specialist there. And just a couple of things. I've been on the watershed task force with the ORR for a while now on the wall bridge and the glass fire recovery efforts. And so I've been working with a lot of folks, some on the phone today or on the call today, to try to figure out where the best places are to put erosion control and other measures in the burn areas, and sometimes trying to map those high priority areas without the USGS state's data on burn severity. So it's been a challenge, and we've relied heavily on Open Spaces GIS team. So thank you. Alex Young and Allison have been especially helpful. And then I just contacted Brianna because I'm part of the Good Fire Alliance, and we're doing a prescribed burn in the Bodega area this weekend, and maybe we can team up to do something on Shone Farm.
Sweet. Okay, and then I've got two phone numbers here. The first one is 707-293-6628.
Hello, that's me. This is Jill, and I represent the Gualala River Watershed Council. Let's see, as far as a quick council update, we're in the same mode we've been in, doing large woody debris surveys, mostly North Fork, Gualala, and we may be starting for conservation fund up in the Garcia River. And I also wanted to, I want to thank Lynn for all the work she's doing in Upper Mark West. Lynn, it's nice you acknowledged other people, and you deserve to be acknowledged too. And Brianna, I'm really excited about hearing about the workshop you're looking at, the boot camp at Shone Farm. We had talked about a similar idea a little over a year ago, I think. And I will respond to your email and give you some information on what we were talking about, but it sounds like we're thinking along real similar lines, and I'd be happy to work with you on that. And that's all I've got.
Nice. You couldn't see it, but Brianna gave you a big thumbs up. So.
Yay.
Great. Okay. And then the last number is actually a few more people are popping in. So I will bring them up. But the next number is.
Hey, Adriana, can I actually go next? I'm one of the phone numbers at 707-291-8395, but I need to jump on another call for a few minutes here soon.
Yeah, I was just going to call on you.
So this is Peter LaCourte. I am the forest manager for the Pacific Union College Demonstration and Experimental Forest here in Angwin in Napa County. I've been tagging on the last of these few meetings. I was introduced to this group by Jason Mills, and I'm really excited to coordinate with all of you over in Sonoma County. I manage about an 1,100-acre forest here on Angwin's vulnerable eastern flank. I've got a 3-mile ridge line that runs through my forest where I started a masticated shaded fuel break project about 2 years ago. I've been doing lots of scatter and pile thinning on the eastern side of that, kind of trying to increase my buffer. And this year, I've got a lot of great projects in the next 3 months. I've got a timber harvest going on to kind of thin out some of the larger trees that get thinned out by a normal fire regime, but we haven't had fire here in 100 years, so I need to do a single tree selection and timber harvest to improve my ridgeline shade field rate. Some of the masticated madrone and tan oaks have resprouted, and so I'm doing an herbicide application to control the resprouting of the tan oaks that I've had come up since the mastication happened. I've got about 32 acres of smaller mastication on kind of my west side of my ridge line, expanding it out to the west. I've got 60 acres I'm going to do hand pruning on the east side by the California Conservation Corps coming up here in a couple of months. And last but not least, I'll be working with Phil Dye and Dr. Sasha Barrelman on some prescribed burns coming up here. I think I might actually be doing my first burn 2 weeks from this weekend, is looking like how it's coming together. So I've actually got a really exciting suite of projects coming up in my forest this year, and I'll be doing a presentation to this group in January, giving you point by point of all the work and how it went, and showing you guys some photos and answering any questions you might have. So again, honored and excited to take part in this esteemed group here.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter.
Hey, Peter, really quickly, do you know if the 4-H camp burned on the Cal Fire demonstration forest right
It
down there?
did not. The Las Posadas Forest did not have any fire enter it, thankfully.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So Steve, why don't you go next?
Okay. Let's see what's going on. I have been working with Adriana and Jill to try and piece together, and Adriana just got back to me with some suggestions on a agenda for something that we want to put on in early December, because I've just been up to my eyeballs and stuff and have not been able to get on this workshop as quickly as I wanted to. I saw that Sonoma County RCD already put on a workshop that was covering some of the stuff we wanted to do on erosion. It probably wouldn't hurt to repeat some of that, but you know, I guess you snooze, you lose on some of this stuff too. You know, if you're not going to get right on it. I did try, but anyway, so we're still thinking about doing that. The time frame is early December at this point. I would love to talk with. We have some ideas about speakers. I'm not sure who's going to cover all this. I was kind of hoping to rope Fred into it. Is Fred on this call? No, he's not. Well, maybe we, Adriana, I can brainstorm things. I can send out the perspective agenda, if I don't know what everybody else thinks of this, to members of the group, and they can certainly raise their hands if there's something they really want to present on where we're going. I think that would be potentially really useful. Right now, we're going to do mostly tree survival. I'm hoping to rope Mike Jones into doing that. He has a talk on oaks. I'd like to broaden it a little beyond oaks. I'm sure he can do that extemporaneously or add it to the end of the talk if it's not on the talk. I have not been able to see his talk yet. And then we're going to do some other ones, a little bit on food safety, produce in people's burn gardens, a little bit on erosion, a little bit on tree survival, and a little bit projecting forward what the bigger picture is and resources and those kinds of things. So you'll see that when I hand it around. And I guess that's all I should really say because I'm burning up time here. So thanks.
That's great. And we're going to spend some time later in the agenda talking about the workshop too. So we can dive in more then. Thanks, Steve. Okay, great. I think Brooke Edwards.
Hey, you guys, this is Brooke. Joining late. Sorry I missed most of the updates, but we don't have any updates here at the Jenner Headlands, but looking forward to hopefully joining Peter and his crew doing a burn out there on some of his property, and just looking forward to doing some prescribed burns, hopefully coming up in the next couple of weeks. But that's it for me.
Cool, great. Jean Chen, I think you might be the last one unless I'm missing anyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I came in late too. I was on another call. The Western Hills Fire Safe Council in Ukiah, we have been working on looking whether we would like to have a web-based phone tree. More rural counties or sorry, more rural fire safe councils are buying into that. We're more of a WUI, we're an unusual fire safe council, so we're not sure we're going to do that. Also looking at hazardous abatement ordinances. We have some of our residences are within city boundaries, some are in county, and it seems like there's always at least one neighbor on a given road that does not want to do any road work for fire protection, like veg management. And so we're looking at how to be able to get a grip on that for protection measures. And then in my role as the chair of the Sierra Club's Northern California Forest Committee, we just had a meeting Tuesday night, and Sierra Club's California director and political advisor from Sacramento were on the meeting with us. And all four of our 5 working groups checked in with issues they want to work on and what kind of support we can expect. We still have a challenge with not having got an Oak Woodlands co-lead. We have one person who's willing, and we need another one. And considering they're not part of the forest practice rules, we really need to get our oaks protected. It's like my heart is with the oaks here. We also were asked by Catherine, the director, to put together a thinning definition. And so I have a small subcommittee of 3 RPFs, environmental scientists, a biologist, a botanist, and environmental activists. We're working, it won't just be a tiny little paragraph. There will be a matrix and a glossary, and when is thinning appropriate and when is it not. Then the big thing I'm working on is a member of the Fire Resilience Ecology Working Group. I'm on the utility well task force, and horrific things are going on right now post-fire by PG&E. I've been asked by Catherine to do a white paper, and we're hoping it's done by next Monday or Tuesday. We need to get in touch with the judge who holds the key to all the finances from the San Bruno fire and has plays the direction of the director of how PG&E goes. And they have manipulated him into thinking that they need to just cut down all the limbs and cut down all the trees to protect the lines, instead of updating the highly antiquated lines and breakers when there even are breakers. So this white paper is going to really state it all. And then we'll be writing a letter to the judge. What we need to do is have grassroots efforts in all the counties that have had fires. I'm putting together a little a paragraph. I'll work with the task force on what it should say, but if there are people in the counties of Sonoma and Napa who have been affected by fires, who are afraid of PG&E cutting their trees, because what they're doing is they're going out of their right-of-way, ROW, and they're going up to like 200 feet beyond, and they're cutting down, they're doing clear cuts in some areas, and cutting healthy trees as well as hazard trees, which really don't yet have a good definition. So if you guys would like to put them out to your, put them up anywhere, and then we can have people call us or sign on, and then we can get the papers back, because we need to do this from the grassroots up. It has to be from property owners. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jean. Maybe you can send us, that was a lot that you just covered, and maybe sending out an email to the group would be good too, to help us follow up with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a really great update. Did I miss anyone? Is there anyone who hasn't gone yet? No? Okay, I think we're all good. Then I'm just gonna pop up our agenda again, and we've gone through our updates, I think. So the next thing is to kind of just do a quick recap on the different working conversations that have been happening around the PG&E settlement funds for vegetation management. And I invited Jason Mills or Caitlin to frame that for us, but I think both of them were unable to make it today. So I'm happy for, anyone who wants to kick us off to do so. I've been attending some of these meetings, so I'm happy to weigh in too on what I've been seeing go on. I think Lynn, you said that you wanted to, I'll just stop sharing again so we can see each other. You wanted to weigh in on this one.
I think mostly, I do want to weigh in on it, but mostly what I'd like to do is hear maybe from Roberta and Carleone or you about what's been taking place and discussed in the other meetings. I'll just say it in front. One of the things that I just learned was that the board set a $25 million floor. We understood it to be a floor, not a cap, for vegetation management. But it appears that they're considering a roads plan on December 8th, and the vegetation management plan is not coming to the board until December 15th. So I'm really trying to learn what else has been discussed and where vegetation management stands in relationship to other financial decisions they're making about this pot of money.
Great, yeah. And then Roberta, do you, or Carleone, but I think Roberta, you'd be a great place to start to kind of give us some background on what work has happened, the conversations that have already happened.
Yeah, okay, so in general, and it makes sense to me that it goes this direction. It feels like the direction in terms of identifying what to do with that sum of money is probably going to be driven by plans already in existence for short-term application, and for more broad-reaching projects, larger scope, down the road a little bit, the update to the countywide CWPP will probably serve that, and the update to the county's local hazard mitigation plan. Those two documents will probably provide primarily as, the charging documents to point to projects where to put, a large chunk of the funding. My sense is that the Board of Supervisors is probably going to want to see some activity so they can share with their constituents the fact that they are doing something quickly. So you'll probably see, I would imagine, this is just my personal belief, mostly an informed opinion. I think you'll probably see relatively soon some small projects, that are small enough to knock out pretty quickly without a lot of CEQA, things like that. I guess I would term it as small enough to do quickly, but large enough to make an impact on the supervisor's constituents in the short term. And then in the long term, and I agree with this philosophy, it feels like the larger portion of the funding will probably be, divvied up based on, like I said, the local plans that are under redevelopment now. That's what I imagine. And I subscribe to that. We met with the fire chiefs. Another board member, Vern Losh, and I attended the county fire chiefs meeting this past Wednesday, and it feels like they want to go that direction as well. But that's just, like I say, it's an informed opinion. We'll see what actually happens. And Carleone, if you weigh in as well, I think that would be of value.
So that was actually a really great synopsis, Roberta. Thank you very much. This is a really tough issue because, everybody has stuff that they want to get done. But really one of the biggest challenges that we're up against is that very few people have what are called shovel-ready projects, which can be implemented without going through expensive and slow environmental review for CEQA and all that stuff. And so while everybody wants to see stuff done on the ground now, there actually are a limited number of projects that we can take on without doing CEQA. And those typically are defensible space type projects, outreach and education type projects, stuff like that. So that's kind of what fire prevention is hoping to circle up is to get some of those kinds of things done. It's still kind of in flux. I'm happy to see focus on the priorities from the 2016 CWPP being discussed as priorities for implementation. And that's this is still in flux. It's still not a done deal, but I think things are moving in a positive direction.
Thanks, you too. That's really helpful framing for the whole thing. And I think it is good that we've got all these plans that already exist that the county has written, be it the Community Wildfire Protection Plan or our local multi-hazard mitigation plan that we can draw from, or the county can draw from to think about what are the biggest needs out there. I wanted to mention that we, a number of Forest Working Group members attended another meeting where we discussed the same issue earlier in the month. And we kind of talked, it was an interesting meeting. I felt like it was a time for everyone to say, kind of what they had been thinking or what they are thinking are some of the big priorities from their own perspectives. And we made a document of all those potential projects that we would want to communicate to the county are things that we're working on, that we're thinking about, and that we would like to, we want them to see what we're doing. I think the other kind of purpose of that meeting too is just to help the county wrap their heads around what work is happening right now, what it costs, what resources are already being put into it, just so that they can get a lay of the land. That sometimes we don't always know if they know what's happening, if they know what work is being done. We kind of just wanted to deliver that information to them. But what they do with that, totally up to them. And I don't, that list wasn't prioritized in any way. It's not like we had like one top recommendation or anything. We were just telling them, hey, this is all of what's happening out there. So yeah, I think like Roberta said, they're going to be meeting December 15th to discuss all of this, and everyone's welcome to attend that meeting, put in their input. And then afterwards, depending on what comes out of that meeting, we may, I think, we can talk again like about, do we want to have another meeting where we discuss the outcome, or do we feel like we're, every individual can just make their comments as they see fit. This is one of those things that I think is a perfect conversation for the working group to be having. So I'm happy to keep that going if people want to. Okay, great. So our next, and are there any other comments about that?
So
go ahead.
Let me just go back to what my concerns are. And I appreciate, because I think both what Carleone was saying and Roberta said are things that I've heard. And one of the things that concerns me is that departments like the road department can come in with a plan that they've already budgeted out, that they've already penciled out, and it can be shovel ready and it can be very clear. Housing advocates come in with proposals that they've been working on for years to talk about how to increase housing in a way that will be infill housing, not WUI housing. And it's very clear. When vegetation management comes forward, I think the board, and I think this is what the staff is trying to collect, is what is that information? What is vegetation management? What do we know needs to be done? What does it cost and where should it happen? And I think they're trying to get a picture of that, but and I think they're trying to align these different groups that have been mentioned. What do fire chiefs want? What do forest groups want? What do the road captains from 2017 want? And try to see where there's alignment. But I still feel like there's a lack of clarity about priorities and cost. And that's what I'm not in a position to do that, but some of you are. And that's what I'm really hoping can come to them before big chunks of money get predetermined and veg management is a smaller consideration because it took us longer to get all our facts to the table. So those are my concerns.
One of the things this is Carleone, one of the things that's really going to help in all of that is will be is the CWPP, the GIS part of the CWPP, the risk assessments that are being done right now, which are quite fast tracked, are really going to help us a lot to determine those priority areas. We all know where they are. You know where yours are. I know where they are. We all know where they are. It's just that any kind of vegetation management, project is extremely complicated to roll out where the rubber hits the road, because, it may be a project that's completely, absolutely necessary and super important for forest health. Is forest health our priority, or is life and safety and property protection our priority? And so it's very difficult to make these determinations, and we're doing the best we can, but I'm very much looking forward to the updated hazard and risk analysis that we're getting now for the CWPP, which is going to include really innovative discussions about wind and wind patterns and all kinds of stuff. So we're moving forward. I hear your frustration, Lynn, and feel free to reach out to me if you want to chat some more.
Yeah, and also I want to kind of chime in there too, Lynn. There is a lot of vegetation management, if you will, work that can be done in the short term that has a positive effect on life safety. And when I say that, I would imagine, and I hope, and I'm pushing for this personally, that some of the what I call low-hanging fruit projects are going to be roadside fuels reduction in particularly challenging areas where evacuation can be an issue. And that doesn't require a lot of CEQA. It's a categorical exemption. County Transportation and Public Works is very interested in doing those kinds of projects where they can marry to work they're already doing a little bit of extra work, and instead of just clearing for sightline, they're doing some tree trimming that also has a positive impact with regard to fuels reduction. So those are things that are going on now. We just finished, as you're probably aware, Fitch Mountain. It's kind of a cool pilot project where we worked with a community up there. We also teamed up with Transportation and Public Works and got a lot of roadside fuels reduction work done up there. And we came in under budget, which is incredible. We're using that model now to apply for funding to do that in 2 more areas, out in Occidental on Joy Road and in the Sonoma area on Grove Street, a couple other problem areas for evacuation. So in Transportation Public Works is 100% on board with those. So I see that as a model moving forward for some of the low-hanging fruit. Also, I wanted to share with you, and Carly-Ann could confirm this or not, but it's my understanding that county planning is already developing a countywide programmatic EIR. So some of the larger projects will, with regard to CEQA and environmental review, will be able to be fast-tracked, for lack of a better term. They won't take 24 months like what CEQA says to allow. They'll be able to be, the environmental review could be done much more quickly once they do the programmatic EIR. So some of these larger multi-acre, multi-parcel projects can be done much more quickly. We all know, this group in particular, know how challenging and time-consuming CEQA can be and environmental review can be. And the county realizes that, and they're making, broad scope changes to make that easier.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move us along, even though this is really super interesting conversation. I think, I feel like this is all great, context for us to be thinking about what's to come. And after that December 15th meeting, we can talk about it again, what we've heard from the county. And until then, I think you can also submit letters to the county in advance of that meeting if you feel a need to. So great. So now Kim and I think we'll give a download on our steering committee meeting we had earlier this month. Kim, do you want to talk about the first item?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I want to invite you all to serve as on the very prestigious steering committee. It has absolutely no benefits. You get very little respect, and you have an opportunity to guide the forest working group in directions we have no idea where we're going. So what we've done with the steering committee, this was a brainstorm after many years of a collective effort to guide the forest working group. But post 2017, when we had a lot of new interest and new energy, we decided a steering committee could help us guide us through a very complicated series of what are the priorities of the working group and how do we best serve the larger group and also the community as a whole. And so the steering committee was formed. We've had as many as 5 or 7 members. Currently, it's been largely Dee, Adriana, myself, Fred, Euphrat, and Jason Mills. And so what we'd like to see is just seeing a little bit more diversity from the standpoint of people who haven't been part of the working group for very long. It'd be nice to have new perspective. We like to see diversity amongst our ranks. Dee and I are some of the longer standing members of the working group, and so it'd be nice to get some fresh blood in there. Not to say that my blood and Dee's blood is getting sour, but the fact is we really like to get some new energy within the steering committee. It's not a huge commitment, and what we try to do is meet about a week ahead of our working group sessions to really focus and develop the agenda for each one of our monthly meetings, determine certain priorities, and then we pitch them to the larger working group so everybody gets a chance to have some input of the direction we go. But it really is helpful to have a new energy and a new commitment from other people. So please just send an email to Adriana if you're interested, and we can move it from there. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Yeah, we would love to see more faces, and y'all are invited. And then, okay, so normally in December, we have a holiday party. This year is a new kind of year, different kind of year. Kim, why don't you tell us about what we were thinking for this?
Well, this
Some
is
COVID caveats.
waters as our county and most of the state starts to see an additional spike of COVID. So we really should have a good heart-to-heart discussion about whether this makes sense at all. But our staff, our stewardship staff, recently had a small gathering at Juilliard Park in Santa Rosa, where we had about 6 or 7 people, socially distanced in an open air environment. We can bring some beverages and take all the precautions necessary to stay safe. But again, we are seeing a spike in incident of COVID. So we should, I'd love to hear your feedback, whether it makes sense to have an annual event that we've had since the beginning of time, so to speak. Usually there's a fair amount of tequila that's invited and other accoutrements. So this is just a proposal to see if people are interested in gathering. If this doesn't sound like a good idea, then we can certainly take it off the agenda. Crickets. Do you feel very strongly about this idea, or how are people feeling about it?
I'll just vote for myself, Kim. While I have attended as many of these as I can think of going back, UC has basically shut our offices down. I mean, I am talking from my office, but our staff people aren't supposed to be going in, and I feel like I should be taking the lead from that. This is something I do for my job, So I'm going to pass this year, even if you guys have it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. All right, sounds like we're going to maybe put a pause on this one, or if you want to give your feedback directly to Adriana and I via email, that's fine too. Again, let's be thoughtful about this, and if it doesn't work, then we move on.
Yeah, I'd also like to just consider that we could have a normal meeting in December too, if people would like to still see each other and like want to keep talking about things instead of canceling it altogether. Or we could just take the month off. I know it's kind of nice to get a break from everything too. So go ahead and like email me like Kim said, or you can drop your thoughts in the chat. Okay, and next is our 2-year work plan. So we have a work plan that expires this December. And so the steering committee is working on looking at that draft, or that, our current plan, and updating it for the next 2 years. We'll be working on that in December, and we'll send you what we have before the end of December, so that there's time to review it, give thoughts back, and then hopefully we can just approve it in our January meeting. And what we're doing to build that out is just to think about like how our world has changed since 2018, when our plan was first written, and think about all the feedback that we've gotten from you guys over the years about how we could be better doing things differently, or different kind of like focus that we want to take on, or how we want to change our focus as a group. So input is definitely welcome. If you're anxious to see that sooner than later, I can send out the current draft, just remind you of what our current work plan looks like, and you can send your thoughts. So there's that. And then everyone here is a volunteer except for me. I work off of a grant from the Fledgling Fund to keep us organized and going. And our grant from the Fledgling Fund is coming to a close also in December. So Dee and I have been working on fundraising to fundraise for another year or two of coordinator hours. And so far we'll plan on applying again to the Fledgling Fund. And we're also interested in looking at other grant opportunities or fundraising opportunities. So I know we've been supported by the Ernie Fund. It's a fund from the Sonoma County Community Foundation in the past, thanks to the help of some of our members who are connected with it. We've also received some generous donations from our membership in the past, which has been great to keep us going. And I think in the future we'll have some events, maybe workshops, or potentially this conference that's coming up, maybe another fundraising opportunity. So just to kind of say that we're thinking about that. It is important to keep kind of our coordination going on. As far as our accomplishments go, we did accomplish a whole lot in the last 2 years, and just want to thank you all for your help on developing the new website. We created that landowners stewardship directory, which I think is a really cool resource. We've also, had speakers come to these meetings and educated each other through that, and collaborated on different workshops that are hosted by the members of this group, and we kind of cross promote it through our group, and a number of other things too. So I'll share out our accomplishments report so that you guys can take a look back, see what we've done, feel good about ourselves, and pat ourselves on the back. I think that's it for us. Kim, did you have anything else to add to the steering committee report?
No, I think that's good.
Great. Okay. So now I'm going to stop sharing and take a minute to pull up the latest draft of our newsletter, since that's one of our offerings to the community, is kind of this periodic newsletter so that people can get an idea of what's going on out there without attending every one of our meetings. So give me a second to pull that up here. So this is not complete, and I would love your input on what else could be added to this. So again, it's a draft. Quarterly news, fall 2020. So the basic contents are where to access different fire recovery resources. I wanted to put that right up front to help landowners, since their members are part of the readership of this, but also non-member landowners and land managers are as well. So I want to really make this newsletter facing towards them. So I've listed, well, I'll just start right here. So we've listed resources for recovering after the burn. County of Sonoma has an emergency recovery information website, which I wanted to just put right at the top as kind of like the official place you go to first. I thought this was interesting. They have some kind of support for forming neighborhood groups, which is something that I've heard other forest landowners say is so important. And you know, I think like Lynn, for example, you know how important your Mark West group has been to figuring out how to respond to emergencies. Now there are, you know, landowners who have not experienced an emergency like this before, who are just realizing, oh, I really wish I had the help of my neighbors, or I knew them and we knew what to do. So I think it's great that the county is offering that kind of service to help connect neighbors with each other. Certainly some of us in the group do that through our work too, but I just want to put that up there. UCCE has a whole library of wild recovery resources on their website, so I linked to that, as does Sonoma RCD. Sonoma Ecology Center is rolling out their watershed protection program. So this is a link to getting in touch with them to, bring their team out to your neighborhood. Santa Cruz RCD has just developed a whole bunch of resources responding to their complex fire they had in August. And a lot of it is specific to redwoods, which I thought was interesting and helpful. And there's a new group called the Farmers Build Fire Resilience, or it's a program that's put on by MESA and the Farmers Guild. And so this is neat for any of our forest landowners who also operate farms. I think that's kind of a cool farm-specific resource for their fire recovery. Are there any resources that aren't listed here that people think should go out? And these are not workshops, but they're just kind of like static resources online, links, documents, things like that.
Again.
Okay, seeing none. If you can think of any, just email them to me. That'd be great. And then in this section, I focused on some really cool, these are new videos that talk about like how to recover, kind of an inspiring, like what is happening on the recovery front and what does a fire adapted community look like? It was awesome that we had two different organizations who produced these. Sonoma Ecology Center is one. They made the 6-minute video talking about the impacts to the Sonoma Valley from, not just the last fire, but the last few years of fire, and just what they've been doing to recover and to prepare for fire in the future. Definitely recommend watching that. And then this is a feature-length film called The West is Burning. And I am not actually sure who created this documentary, but it's being shown on PBS, I think. And it features it features a few people from Sonoma County who talk about the Tubbs fire and what we've learned since then, including Melanie Parker, who's the director for regional parks. And so it has it kind of talks about fire throughout the West, but it really does focus on our experience, and same with Paradise. I think they spent some time in Paradise. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I saw the trailer. And it just contains a lot of, I think, some good thoughts about like how we can pull ourselves out of this era of mega fire. Has anyone had a chance to watch this? Not yet. Okay, cool. Well, you can see it here. And they also offer like screening parties. So we might want to consider if we want to do a screening party at some point. That'd be cool. Kim, I think you sent me the information about this. Did you have any other ideas about? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't got a chance to see that particular video, but it was shared by us from Regional Parks. Melanie is the Deputy Director of Parks and is focused on a lot of the environmental impacts of fire on both regional parks and other places. So she passed it along. I thought it would be interesting for us to view.
Okay, cool. I was just checking out the chats to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Well, great. So I just want to put this out there for folks just to say that they can watch it on their own, or maybe in the future we'll want to make some kind of viewing opportunity because it sounds like a really great film. Down in land manager education, this is just kind of a reminder again to everyone that we offer these different education opportunities, including our brown bags. It's kind of a bummer like saying that we do this because we don't always organize them far enough ahead of time to advertise them. We kind of tend to do them maybe like 1 month out, or we plan it the month of. But I think we can maybe get better at that and keep them up on our website event page. For stewardship workshops, something that we have not done so much of this year, but we have partnered with other organizations who have, like the UC A&R has a really great forest stewardship workshop all about developing your own management plan. And we cross promote that down here. And then also that reminder that we're available to do house meetings, something we haven't done in a while, but I was approached, Ivan actually on the call is someone who connected me with the Joy Ridge Road neighborhood who would like to have a few of us come and talk about kind of like, yeah, redwood, like redwood harvest, redwood silviculture, their ecology, what's appropriate, and all of that to help that neighborhood get a handle on, you know, what does appropriate management look like in their area. So thanks to this, someone reached out to me and got in touch. So, but I did want to put a blurb here for the workshop that Steve was talking about. This is the Sonoma County Fire Recovery Workshop. And as Steve said, we're looking for speakers to talk about how to interpret fire damage on the property and tree mortality, how to evaluate post-fire potential erosion, and when to act and when not to act, because as we've been learning that sometimes we overdo our erosion control measures. I think that's a really important topic to cover. Understanding the wildlife concerns and also like opportunities for wildlife habitat improvements post-fire. And then just generally, like, what can people expect this winter? What's our rainfall forecast? What have we learned from past fires that have gone through, you know, mild, moderate, or heavy winters, and what people should do to get ready? And then taking a longer range view, just like what we can, you know, how we think about fire impacts, what we've learned from the past, and give some resources for more support. So I think, yeah.
No, I muted her. Great. Okay. So what are nature-based solutions? I took this straight from FEMA's website. You know, there's sustainable environmental management practices that restore, mimic, and or enhance natural systems or processes and support natural hazard risk mitigation, as well as economic, environmental, and social. So really, you know, at the high level, everything, you know, approach.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not really sure who that was. So I'm just going to pitch out there to ask, does anyone have any speakers in mind for this? I think Steve and I had talked about like getting Mike Jones on board to talk about fire and tree damage. I'd love to get someone to talk about erosion issues post-fire.
Really quickly, we have a video by Rich Casal on the post-fire erosion potential, which we could just run with. I mean, we don't have to have a speaker on that. I could ask Rich if he'd be available whatever day we want for a question and answer session after that we run it. And then there is a woman with a PhD out of San Mateo County, new UCC advisor. I've never met her and I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she did a wildlife talk for us and she's recorded it. So I want to be able to look at that and see how good that is. That does not mean we have to use her or anything like that. I'm just sort of putting out what we've sort of got tentatively lined up. And Adriana, I meant to send this to you last night. It's in an email sitting on the thing and I realized I hadn't sent it to you. And then I realized I was late for this meeting, so I didn't send it to you. It's still sitting in my outbox. So anyway, so we have those at least penciled in. I don't know if everybody's available to them. I'm open to other options. I haven't ever even seen this person on Wildlife Interactions talk, so I don't know what that is because I've never met her. So it's really those bottom three that I feel like, so the top three are really, how do we say, those are sort of perennial issues. Those are going to happen with every fire, which is one of the reasons we ask people to make a talk about them that we can show all over the state of California. These bottom ones for what to expect this winter, we certainly can't make a video about that and have it last any longer than this winter. Long range view ahead for Sonoma County, that's pretty really locally relevant. So that's not going to be something we make a video out of. And the resources for more support is going to change a little bit. So it's really those bottom three. We don't have anybody for any of those right now. And I'd love to hear whatever anybody wants to do. I'm also willing to, how do we say? I didn't mean to say it that way, but I'd like to have people, if you want to do some of the top three, that's fine too. We'll just have to figure out how we're going to make that work. And whether, so let's talk about that. I'm not closed to the idea of using those other, of running somebody from our group to those other options. I just feel like we've already got some resources, so I don't want to emphasize those as the things we're really hunting for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
It's always fun.
It makes a lot of sense if we maybe target, this is a brown bag session for December in lieu of a holiday get together. It seems like it makes a lot of sense for us to just target our efforts and get people to support Steve in this. I think these are really relevant issues. It will be timely for everything from PG&E funding to share some of the lessons learned from the last 3 years. So thanks, Steve, for taking the lead on this. I think it really makes sense that based on, I think, some very valid concerns about safety, that we shouldn't do the holiday get together, but rather we can focus our efforts on this brown bag session.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Adriana, you mentioned reaching out to Mike Jones over at UC Cooperative Extension. And I don't know if anyone mentioned this, but there was a tour out on Fred's property. I think that was last week. And there was a number of foresters out there and water quality specialists. We had a really good discussion concerning the top 3 bullet points on this upcoming workshop. And so if you reach out to Mike, I bet he would have some folks that he could pull into the discussion with a thought of Fred's property and all of that fresh in their mind.
And I was going to, it's always fun to volunteer the people who aren't here. Jason, Jason could probably speak to a couple of those bullet points. So I can follow up with Stephen and Jason about that.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you.
Dee, did you want to say something? You had your hand raised.
Yeah, first apologies. I was here at 10 and I did some other things for the forest group instead of joining the meeting because I just had the wrong link. Anyway, so apologies for my confusion. But yeah, I want to support all of the topics, and we don't have a date for that yet, but is it going to be in December?
I believe so.
Okay.
If we can do it.
We're gonna, Adriana had, she got it right when she said, what we really need to do in scheduling this is figure out when we can actually get our speakers to back us up on this. And you know.
When
So-
I really also support Kim taking the December meeting and making it a working meeting instead of a partying meeting. At first, when we were talking about it at the steering committee, we were going, yeah, we all have to get together. Wouldn't that be great? You know, but that's not as important. I mean, we are together, here we are, and we can celebrate things, you know, when we can. But I think working through that, I totally support that, Kim, and thank you for suggesting that change. Darn, no, you know.
I saw Arthur has his hand raised.
Yeah, I was wondering, looking at what's in the future for Sonoma County, it got me thinking about the history, and and I wouldn't want to. Well, I wouldn't want to focus too much on that, except that the history really seems like it will inform the future to some extent. And I was thinking, we have Allison coming in at noon to show the map of all the places that have burned in the last 3-4 years. And I thought, I can't speak for her, but I would be interested in teaming up with her if she's available to do. I could do a very quick synopsis of like one area of the Mayacamas that's burned like 6 times in the last 150 years, just to show how cyclical these patterns are. And then I thought if she could take the coverage that she just did and then see how many of those places that burned in the last 3 years burned within the CAL FIRE record, which goes back to about 1945. It would be interesting just to see how many of those areas were repeat burns. And then that kind of informs, at least at some level, what we might be looking at in the future. I mean, it may well get worse, but at least it's a kind of a baseline for thinking about what's likely to happen.
Yeah, great idea.
So I'd be willing to, maybe Kim, you could, or I guess I could probably contact Allison directly and see if she's willing. I may have to leave for a little bit now, but I'm going to try to come back at noon when she's on. So maybe I can, if that sounds good, I'll contact her about maybe joining up for a 15-minute presentation on December 7th.
Yeah, I think that sounds great, Arthur. I've been in contact with Allison and she'll be here in a little bit. So I think it makes great sense to have that perspective of what we've learned over the last 3 years and how does it reflect out on the historical fires as well. Great idea.
Okay,
sounds great. And again, this is a question mark. So we don't know when the date is, so we'll determine the date based on the availability of our speakers. Any other comments about this?
Yeah, Adriana, does anyone need help on getting this together? This is a pretty big one.
Yeah, we could definitely use help. And I think I just saw in the chat that Pepperwood was mentioned as a possible resource for the look ahead. So yeah, I think maybe we should all just reach out to anyone who could be of help and maybe copy me and Steve when you send out your communications so we can all stay in the loop.
Okay, well, just for sure, if anybody has an hour or two to help Adriana or Steve with this, or whoever else is working on it, they could use some help, some volunteer help. Thank you.
Well, I'd love to chime in here really quickly on one of the things I think I need help with, probably, and I don't know who, Adriana, I mean, I'm not speaking for you. I've never run a webinar before. I've run plenty of Zoom meetings, and I would almost prefer to run this as a Zoom meeting, but, and maybe I'm being optimistic, but if the enrollment gets really big, we need to figure out what format we're doing this in, for one. And if it's a webinar, my understanding is it takes a number of different people to run the thing. You've got to have your announcer, and you've got to have people running, and we may need to cut, even if it's a, anyway, I think one of the places we're going to need help is in this background thing. And if people have experience doing this, that would be a boon to me. I don't know how everybody else is. Enough said.
Yeah, I've run meetings before, and I was thinking about just running it like a meeting, but Roberta, you've done what?
Yeah, Fire Safe Sonoma, we've done a lot of webinars, and if you want help with that, we can certainly help with that. In fact, I think, Adriana, we could probably even offer Kaylin to assist because that's what she does for my webinars now. I used to do them singularly for the most part. And, you know, it is a little challenging doing by yourself. But the webinar, I think when you're presenting material, it's different than having a meeting like this. So I'm a huge advocate of the webinar format for stuff like that. And like I say, you know, if you want help with that, I think Fire Safe Sonoma, myself personally, I could help with that.
Thank you. That's awesome. We'll definitely take you up on it. Well, moving forward, do you think we should just stay in touch by email, or do we need to have like a little team meeting at some point? What do people think?
I think once we get our people, some ideas of speakers together and we have an idea of the date, we need to get together with the team and really, so maybe Adriana, can you and I try and move this ball a little further down the field before we, before we open it up? And then once we do, that's where I think we're really going to need the help, although maybe I'm just worrying too much. But by all means, I'm not trying to be exclusive. If other people want to jump in, I was just saying before we ask for help, because I feel like we know what we're doing a little bit. If other people have ideas and want to contribute, please feel free. We will be happy to include you.
I see Pepperwood's name getting thrown around a little bit. So we're more than happy to help. And I don't want to speak for Michael Globally, our preserve manager, but I'm sure we can help in any capacity, but I'll let you guys reach out to us. We're a little busy these days, but if you do need assistance and want some input from Pepperwood team, just feel free to email me and I will happily reach out to resources internally.
Awesome, thanks. And then just kind of a last note to say that this will be our December meeting, it sounds like, so everyone's welcome to attend, but it's also going to be something that we want to advertise to landowners and land managers. So as soon as we come up with, you know, a flyer or this newsletter, please pass it on to anyone that you think would want to attend. It'd be great help to get, it would be great to get advertising help. Sweet, thanks. Okay, so then further down, we've got the, we just always want to talk about this forest stewardship workshop because it's basically the boot camp that we had thought, or a kind of form of the boot camp that we had thought about in past years. And since UCANR is doing it, we just kind of want to keep supporting them in doing it. And now that it's online as well as in person, it means that it's even more accessible for our Sonoma County landowners. Because I think in the spring, they're going to do it, oh wait, 2020.
Yeah,
but I think they're, you know, the next one is going to be in like Calusa or something. I don't know. It'll be kind of far out there. So having it online is great. And yeah, and then on the same note, we have been in conversation with Kim Ingram, who puts these on for UCANR, talking to Kim Ingram about bringing it to Santa Rosa sometime next year. I think would be great. Although I guess with COVID, the location really does matter less. Well, anyway, we'll see how that all works out. Further down, I just wanted to plug again the stewardship guide, the directory, just make sure that people still see that and use it and share it. And then here in this section, this has been from a forester. It was the last title it had, and we had this article from Jason Wells, who's an RPF, about thinning and the active management. But this month I thought maybe we would change it and make it more generally from the woods, you know, like here I thought we could do a quick interview with Lynn. I think Lynn last month or in the past you had offered to give some thoughts. Bye Arthur. See you soon. And yeah, so I thought it'd be great to hear from a landowner who's survived fire and like kind of what has been so helpful to you. Lynn, you're not the only potential person. If you decide you don't have time for this, we could reach out to someone else as well. But just thought having some personal story in there would be good. Would you be open to that still?
I'm open to it. I also think people might be tired of hearing about me because I seem to get more than my share of attention, which I appreciate. But let me think about it. If I can think of somebody else who would be new, I'll let you know. If not, I'm certainly happy to do it.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. I'll reach out to you for that in a little bit. And then the second article, Kim, at one time you had talked about this. Governor Newsom has a new 30 by 30 plan, and you had talked about like providing some thoughts on what that means for Sonoma County. I don't know if that still sounds like a article topic that you think would be interesting to our readers, and if you'd have time to even write one up.
I think it'd be really interesting. The deadline might be a little tight. What's our go time we're talking about?
Well, I think just as soon as we can, but I know, we'll be held up on getting a date for the workshop and a couple other content additions. So maybe we wouldn't really get it out there until, gosh, like 1st of December.
Oh yeah. Do other people think that would be an interesting addition to it?
And remind us what the 30 by 30 plan is.
Essentially that let me see, it's been a little while since I touched base with this. Trying to protect biodiversity by 2030. And that would be a certain percentage of the land across of California is the goal. So yeah, I think it would be good to highlight those things. It's a little bit more esoteric compared to some of the other issues, but I think it could be pretty interesting for folks.
I have to agree with Kim. The more we can hear about that, the better. Newsom has turned out to not be an environmental hero. And this is maybe the one thing that he's put out that we really do want to support and learn about.
I was just seeing some notes in the chat saying that there's an executive order we could be sharing about natural working lands, and just some additional support for hearing about how statewide plans affect our county. So yeah, I think this would be a cool topic. Kim, I'll leave it to you to see if you have the time, or if you want to recruit a helper to write with you. That's great. Okay. Great, and then that's it. Just kind of like join us, take our survey, support our work. Is there anything that's obviously missing from this that should be included? Let me know if you think there's anything else.
I agree with Brooke, but I think it's spectacular, all the resources you're pulling together here, Adriana, and I really like the format as well.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, then maybe we'll just plug in those last few missing things and send it off. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Stop sharing and let me look back at our agenda. So cool. Thanks for your thoughts on the newsletter. We just talked about the workshop at the same time, so that's great. I think I just wanted to touch back on the house meetings idea. I haven't totally fleshed out how this is going to work on the Joy Ridge. I'm hoping it can be in person, but again, COVID is what it is. And so I don't know if we'll need to make adjustments for that, but the house meetings, I think, are just the support to neighborhoods and thinking more about their local issues, especially I think relevant in this time of recovery, is a big assistance that we can offer the community. So I just wanted to ask if anyone has been hearing like on the ground that there's a need for this. If so, let me know, and we should talk about how to get people out there. This could be in the form of just like walking the land, having just a casual conversation with more than one landowner, I think is the goal, so that it has like kind of a more neighborhood impact. Or it could be like organizing a conversation over Zoom for neighbors to talk to each other with a couple specialists. If there are any ideas about that, let me know. I know I had got, oh, and I'll just stop. Sometimes I forget to stop speaking because it's Zoom.
I'm for it in principle. I think the devil's in the details on this. Again, you know, I'm supposed to be following rules for my work, and they're basically saying we have to keep everything. So if we can do it all outside and we can keep 6 feet apart, I think that's really not a huge problem from my end. So I'd be willing to participate in that if you can use me. I'm sure there's a lot of other people, but I think it's a good idea. The problem is with scheduling this kind of stuff on the land is the weather in the winter. So a Zoom meeting might be a whole lot more realistic in terms of disease transmission, weather, all the other variable factors that we're worried about, but it's a lot less useful because you don't get to see people's land. So I'm just throwing that out as seeds for thought and let somebody else weigh in from here.
I have an idea of potentially having a workshop at Pepperwood. We just recently thinned 126 acres and piled it and are planning to produce that fuel with pile burning. And I was thinking it would be a good opportunity to maybe have people out. It'd be easy to socially distance, to walk a little portion of that and kind of see the work that happened and talk about why we did that and maybe some of the benefits and our plan to follow up with pile burning. And I was hoping to also get some folks out from the Good Fire Alliance, and then if people were up for it, lighting off some of the piles too, just so if people are unfamiliar with pile burns, they could get exposed to that also, and I could get help burning my over 1,000 burn piles. It's just an idea stage, but if people think that would be a good idea or be interested in it, I'd be happy to continue to pursue it.
I think that's a great idea. I went to one pile burn workshop that the GFA did a while ago and really liked it. And Lynn was there.
If we're talking about the same one, there was also one of Mayacamas Mountain Fire Safe Council did one. It was very helpful. It was raining. Yeah. We were all wet, but we learned a lot. And it was a nice way to be outside in the weather.
Totally.
I want to say the other thing that I don't know, I'm not sure what help might be needed, but what we're doing a lot up here in the Marquess watershed is getting together and just walking and hiking without any particular attention to fire or damage, doing it in places where there's green grass and on recovered properties that look better, just to give people a sense of hope that the land recovers and that it's still beautiful and that you can still find things growing. So we're kind of taking it from a very non-educational, more let's feel good and get together, and we do it outside and we do it in all weather.
Yeah, I think it'll also be interesting if people, the section we thinned burned in the tubs and in the Kincaid fire. So just to have people see the areas that burned twice and how that's recovering, I think would be maybe interesting for people.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great workshop idea, Devin, for sure. I think I would put it in the workshop category and not so much in the house meeting category though. And I'm just curious to hear if anyone else has any more thoughts about like how to do house meetings at this time. I feel like they're needed, but I also feel like it's challenging with the weather and COVID.
Well, Adriana, in my opinion, we should be asking the folks who are asking for the house meeting, if there are people actually interested in the house meeting, what do they want? I mean, because I think we have the capacity to do multiple different things, but if there are clientele and we go and say, well, you know, we can only do X, Y, Z, and it's not meeting their needs, that doesn't really help anybody. So are there particular cases that you know of? Can we offer them options and see what they come back to us with?
I know, you know, this isn't the forest topic, but I know a lot of different groups, particularly in Oakmont, want to have defensible space neighborhood, you know, quote, house meetings. And we've done some of those in our resilient landscapes, you know, we've offered those, and they've been very welcome. But I'm not sure, are you talking more, you're talking more about wandering through forests, which it seems to be very similar. And it seems like there are communities that would be willing to do that, as long as, but the people aren't like me, and I have to keep forgetting. I don't mind putting on my rain gear, just like Lynn, and wandering around outside. I mean, I have no problem with that. But I think that people who are, who have larger properties are probably living there because they don't care as well. So we just have to find those groups. I don't have access to lists, but, I wouldn't mind being involved. I'd be happy to help.
Well, historically, one of our best attended forest stewardship workshops, at least in terms of what we had budgeted for and the number of people showed up, was in the rain. Because they didn't have anything else going on in the rain. And so we did that up off of Trinity Road, and we had a lot of people out in the rain, walking around with us. So it was good.
And you can really promote it as, this is where you find out about erosion. This is where you find out about where the water goes. This is where you find out how you have to take proactive measurements to keep the water on your property rather than, washing off, especially given, fire issues and potential for really disastrous consequences.
So if they're interested in erosion issues, that's good. I'm not the guy to do that. And Rich Casal is hard to get, and he's out of Santa Cruz, and this would be a long drive. But maybe somebody, I thought, was it Sonoma Ecology Center? We're saying they had some people who were good on.
Well, that's one of the big things that we're doing. It's focused more right now on toxic runoff, but it's the same, it's the same situation. It's the same. Well, when we're doing it with our bulldozer, the dozer marks and stuff. So yeah, I mean, we definitely have the skills, we have the knowledge, whether or not we have the time, given everything that has to be done to recover from the glass fire. I can't make any promises. I need to talk to Jason Mills, not to be confused with Jason Wells.
I know.
But anyway, I'm writing them emails right now to see what kind of follow-up we can get.
I think the Sonoma RCD would be an excellent resource too, as far as their work on erosion control and some of the things that they've done on different road systems.
Also, Jeff Kelly with NRCS has some experience. We actually had Rich Casal up to Pepperwood after the Kincaid fire. We had about 15 miles of dozer lines. And worked with the Sonoma Ecology Center to come help us do some of those. So Jason definitely has good experience with that. But if you also feel free to reach out to me, Stephen. I have gotten some good experience in experiencing the 2019. I'd be happy to contribute if that would be helpful.
I'm sure it would. So Devin, if we depending upon where this goes, let's get some folks together from SEC and Pepperwood and talk about who covers what. Maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves, and it's Adriana's ship to steer, not mine. So I hope I didn't step on your toes. I'll let Adriana say what she thinks, and I'll just shut up now.
You're fine, Steve. I'll just say one thing, and then I know Dee has her hand raised. But I think maybe what we want to do, I have heard from landowners that they're interested in this. Ironically, though, they like communicated it over our survey on our website, and then I got the survey, and then I got in touch with them, but they never responded to me. So I don't know what to do about that. But what we could do maybe is just put even more boldly in our newsletter that we're offering these house visits, that we're willing to help out, whether it be virtual or in person, in rain or whatever, and maybe we'll get some more interest that way. Okay, Dee?
Yes, I would like to suggest us taking time to think about inviting the wine industry or some of the of the people that are in that industry to either co-host a house meeting with us or somehow begin to encourage those relationships, because they have lots of forest land, as you know, and the vineyards both burned and also prevented a fire from So I think that would be a really interesting and important addition to add that segment of our community and communicate more. And I think that one of the ways to do that is to have the first one just be kind of an easy one, whether it's just a little, we invite them to a meeting of this group, or that we have a little workshop or house meeting. So I'd like to have that be discussed further, because I think it does take some more time to think through it. But I think this is an opportunity. They have been reaching out to taking action, by the way, and there are many vineyard owners now that understand that their economic vitality is tied to healthy forests and lessen the smoke and blah, blah, blah. So I'll be glad to take a lead in that if that sounds interesting, but I would like to have someone else join me, because I'm not as familiar with hosting these workshops, but I can see there would be a great learning on both sides. What are they doing for toxic erosion? What are we doing? Can we cross-reference, techniques, and especially to start to get them to realize that they have important forests themselves, and that we would love to participate in helping educate them or learning from them about management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would be great if you wanted to reach out to your contactee and invite them to our next working group meeting, and so we can start that conversation.
Well, I'll figure some way out that's appropriate to reach out to them, because it seems like maybe not a big meeting, but maybe 3 or 4 of us talking to them. So if, and I'll reach out to them first, and then I'll see, getting back in touch with everyone who would like to join in a Zoom meeting, a short one, to see if this is a viable idea and begin to shape it.
Okay.
And if there's anybody right now that says that wants to say, yes, I'm interested in working on this, let me know now. Otherwise, just we'll keep working on it, and you can volunteer later.
Okay, great. So I think we should move on, but before we do, I saw that Allison has joined us, and she also had her hand raised, so I just wanted to give her a second to
Hi there.
Hi.
Sorry to be joining a little bit late. And I don't know if this has been discussed, but wanted to contribute a note to the conversation about working with landowners for debris cleanup and erosion control BMPs, coming fresh out of discussions with the Watershed Task Force. We're wrestling with and hoping to come up with some way to track who within the Glass Fire and the Walbridge fires have already been in contact with folks, either through, there's Cal OES funds that are being deployed through Sonoma Ecology Center, the Community Soils Foundation, and Russian Riverkeeper, I believe. So we have a good sense of who's working with those folks, but in terms of private landowners who are doing work on their properties, the county is interested in knowing what work's been done, so we can check that box or see where there's a gap where additional funding might be needed, so we can put in a proposal and outreach to those landowners. So if there is a way for me to stay in touch with someone in the group who's coordinating those efforts for information exchange with the county, that would be really great.
Always thinking about the data points.
I'm like, we have a need to track here. Let's make a tool.
Let's make a map. That's great. Yeah, I think maybe we could be kind of reporting to each other when we know that technical assistance has been provided. We don't really have a platform for that yet, but I think maybe if there's interest, we could work on making one.
Can I make one comment about the house meetings?
Sure.
So we're mostly talking about landowners out in the country. My home is smack dab in the middle of Sebastopol. However, we have a really great neighborhood group that met a few times before the pandemic. And I'll bet there are other neighborhood groups in the area, in Santa Rosa and other places around Sebastopol and other small towns, that there maybe could even be like a little Zoom meeting lesson for them, unless you feel like they should just join the webinars and call it good. I just thought I'd put that idea out there.
I think that's great. I think it's all by demand. So if they want it and they get in touch with us, then that's cool, for sure. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to move us on. Thank you all so much for your thoughts about the workshops and the house meetings. I think that was an important one to talk about. And so with just 15 minutes left, I'll give us 5 minutes for the video, and maybe we'll just do 10 for the conference idea. So the video project is something that we talked about in the spring, and it got delayed because of COVID and then the fire disruption. And I still think, I'd like to hear from you guys if you think it's still a good idea for us to put together a short video. It'd be like 3 minutes, maybe, just kind of talking about an inspirational video to highlight some forest land managers and forest issues that we feel can be addressed with active management and kind of a new, the sort of ethic of landowners getting in touch with the resources that are available to them and getting in touch with their neighbors and making things happen. To me, that's been the concept of the video all along, is just how to inspire stewardship in the community and to communicate the value that forests have in terms of improving our ecological health and well-being, and also preventing wildfire, some of the mega fires that we've seen because of the fuel load that's available. So that was not very succinct, but I feel like the video could be useful in some ways, but I also don't feel like it's something that we have to do if we don't think it's really the most important thing right now, or not the project that we want to be focusing on. So I wanted to ask you guys what you think about keeping that video project on, maybe doing it in the spring or the summer of next year, or if you feel like we might just want to scrap it.
Dee here, I think it's a really good idea. I wonder if we should put the calendar to the summer. And my question is there a videographer that is still interested in working pro bono with us?
Yeah, someone who wants to do it for $1,000. He just thinks it's a cool project and we can afford it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I really support the idea and hope that a subcommittee could form and bring us back with, an idea of what the content would be and who the audience is.
Thanks, Dee.
This is Stephen. I think it's a good idea too. I'd love to see it stay on our agenda. I think video is the way forward, especially with the possibility that COVID could drag on for another year or two. I don't see ourselves being able to reach people using more traditional methods very effectively. And enough said, yeah.
I second that. I think videos can reach vastly larger numbers, especially 3 to 6 minute videos of audiences. So if we can get it together, I mean, it's, to do a 3 minute video takes a huge amount of work. And, I think it's an awesome idea. And if I'm available, I'll help as much as I can, but I wouldn't take the lead.
In the old days, when we did, when TV shows or TV stations had PSAs, they were mandated, I think, by the FCC to have these free 3-minute times to provide for public information. And so having a video that one of the audiences is to get it out to a larger media audience would, I think, really be helpful. Plus you can send them and people can watch them, without us having to do anything, and it could go up on our website. Anyway, I really like the idea.
So I can't decide if I should be silent or not silent. So I'm going to just go ahead and say this. Bonan's Rural has a videographer who has lived on the land, has pre-glass fire beautiful videos and drone footage of the land. probably has footage, if I remember correctly, of prescribed burns prior to the glass fire. They're all really suffering right now, and it's a hard time to ask them to do anything other than what they're already doing. But if the timeline is far out enough, then I can talk to them about whether or not that's something that they might want to do. They just put out a video yesterday, a thank you video for their GoFundMe drive. And it's wonderful and beautiful and makes me cry. So it has definitely that inspirational, emotional piece that's so important when you're trying to get your message across. So I'll have that conversation with them and see if that's something and what the timeline might be for them to consider that.
Yeah, that's great. I think ask them what would be a good timeline for them, and then we can make that timeline, you know, what we should do.
Thanks, Dee. That's the right way to say it.
And I just want you to know too, Lynn, that Ken was the videographer that we had initially, he was all on board, very excited to work with us. And then when this, you know, after the fire hit, he bowed out understandably, and someone else leaned in. So I think if he wants, you know, yeah, if he has the bandwidth to help, that would be great, but no pressure. Okay, well, great. So I'll keep it on the agenda and maybe start to work with a few of you on fleshing out that whole, like, what, you know, who we want to interview, what's the script, what's the purpose, who's the audience.
And let me just weigh in on, for the minutes anyway, to put Kyle Burnett's name. He's a videographer as well. He's one of our program analysts for Taking Action, and he's you know, has experience, and I think that Towels could actually pay him to help a bit too. So just put that in the hopper.
Thanks, Dee. Okay. Great. So I've been talking a lot. Does anyone else want to talk about the conference concept? Dee or Kim, maybe?
I will. I've been promoting the idea of having a gathering because I haven't attended a gathering of forest professionals or forest owners since the symposium of, was it 2018? And it seems we've all learned so much, experienced so much, that it is time to have a gathering, not the 420 people that we got last time, but to really tailor it to what we think our community needs right now, not just within our own community, but which experts outside of our community would we want to have involved to make it as educational and learning and taking actions together afterwards. I would want it to be, again, action oriented. So, okay, we learn all this, we've shared this. What do we do with it collectively that advances the work that we have ahead? So I'm very in favor of it, but we all need to, a lot of people need to like it to make it work. So I'm just weighing in that I would love to see it, and I'd like to help it happen. I would say the timeline doesn't have to be in the spring. I mean, we're talking about a lot of stuff in about 4 months. I think we need to first just talk about it, think about it, embrace it or not, and then think about a timeline.
Thanks, Dee. That's a good way to go about it.
I think we got to kind of reflect back on how we do our work. And so what we've done in today's meeting has been to kind of do a lot of the big thinking together, which was great. But I think one of the tools we've used in the past have been subcommittees. And so subcommittees typically would take the lead on developing an outline of what our proposed action would be, what we would hope to accomplish, and then put a little meat on the bones, so to speak, when it comes to what this actually looks like. I would encourage us to do that step and then always what a subcommittee does is present, tee it up to the working group as a whole and say, this is what we want to accomplish. So I think that would be the next step, is to really put together a subcommittee who is familiar with the logistics of doing something like this, and really tee it up so that we all understand the time commitment, what it's going to take to get the right speakers and that type of thing.
Great, great, great. And I would like to invite the Sonoma Land Trust to that subcommittee, or at least even just if they came one time to help us, because they helped us so much on the other two that we sponsored and also on the symposium. So is anyone here from the Sonoma Land Trust today? Okay, but anyway, I'll take charge of getting in touch with them, because I've talked about this with Eamon, and maybe, we can keep the conversation with him going.
Yeah, so maybe we could just hear, I see a couple raise of hands of people who might be interested in being on a subcommittee to talk a little more about this in detail and come up with a pitch for the group, like Kim was talking about.
Is someone signing up? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I'm inviting people to kind of sign up just to continue to think about the idea.
Yeah.
And you can just say, yes, me. I'll put it in the chat. Or if there's no interest in this, then we don't have to continue to entertain the idea. That's fine too. I guess I'll just say one thing for me, like something I thought would be cool about this is to make it simple and to use it as an opportunity to have all the brown bag meetings we've ever talked about doing. It would just be a way, because we have a hard time scheduling this. So I was like, maybe we could just have a conference where we do all of them on one day. So to me, it was kind of like a way of accomplishing all of that, and just kind of making it as simple as like a speaker and then a Q&A and then another speaker and Q&A, but it could be anything.
And I think that the invitee list will be really important, because there's some state and federal opportunities out there. And if we could get our federal staff members, even from the various elected officials, to come and listen, because they usually came to our other ones, and that would help inform them of the needs and what we're doing. So I'll be really attentive to who we could get to come to such, not to be a presenter, but to just come and be part of it.
Well, that's a great idea.
I will just kind of, I guess, the online webinars, there seems to be so many these days, and I have tended to overlook a lot of them. So just to maybe consider thinking about kicking it back and start a planning process now, but looking later down the road that.
Yeah. Adriana, there was a man that was at one of our last couple of meetings that said he'd help. Do you have his name in the minutes?
Oh, yeah, I think that was Peter, and I can't remember his last name.
Well, would you pull that up? Because he was definite, and he was I think he's an educator in the academic world. Anyway, if you could let me know that, maybe Adriana, you and I and the steering committee could talk about it at the next month meeting, kind of frame Kim's good idea of putting the subcommittee together.
Okay, and then I also hear what Devin is saying about Zoom fatigue, kind of, and maybe we should think about that as a reason to push this further out or reconsider it.
Yes, I think further out is right.
I will also say I was fortunate enough to attend both of the previous Forest Working Group conferences, and they were both just super beneficial in terms of like encouraging me to pursue conservation and stuff. And I think a lot of those benefits came from those conversations with the people sitting next to me after a talk happened, or just a lot of the communications that happens outside of listening to the speaker. I think I've noticed that it was a really positive takeaway I took from the previous conferences, and just not having that maybe for an online conference. It can accomplish a lot, but just throwing an idea out there.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll just take any other last thoughts about this, and then I'll start to transition for Allison's presentation. But yeah, certainly if you have any other thoughts.
I totally agree with the whole Zoom fatigue factor, and who knows how long this is going to last. But the land trust rally that took place about a month ago was very successful. I thought they did good presentations. There were a slew of different topics that were covered. People could go to the sessions that were most applicable to them. So we could be really creative about it, but that it takes a lot of planning. And so we have to just be aware that only Adriana's earning the big bucks with this job. So, and I'm teasing her. But we do have to be cognizant of the fact that we all have day jobs that are taking up a lot of time. So let's be aware of those factors and recognize our limitations, but also think of the ways that we could really be creative in order to do something that really makes an impact and keep it local as much as we can.
And let's start out with how to fundraise so that we can relieve ourselves. I think this is a very fundable project. So I'll sign up to help with that in our next meeting about it.
Nice, thanks. Okay, well, maybe just the last thing that would be helpful is if everyone could type in the chat right now. If we had a 1 day or 2 day conference that was online for maybe like 5 hours a day, would you attend or would you not? Maybe you would just, if you knew the agenda ahead of time, would you like pop in on a speaker that you thought was interesting, or would you be like, just not interested right now? I think that would be really helpful for me, just to think about how interested folks are in this or not. Devin, you said you would attend.
The main reason I wanted to bring it up is just that I know a lot of time and energy goes into this, and the Forest Working Group's only able to put one of these on once every 5 years or so. And my idea of just being like, maybe we kick it down the road 2 years, and so that all that energy could go into an in-person one. And I know we have no idea how long COVID will last, and there's a need right now. So
yeah,
that's an interesting idea, though, Devin. And nice to.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. That is helpful, and I'll definitely consider all of these comments. And it sounds like people are feeling like, yeah, probably would hop on for a speaker or two, and that makes sense. And then, yeah, of course, Devin, like thinking about timing, that's all good to think about. Okay, great. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now. And Allison, did you have, let me go into our sharing options, and I'm going to give sharing privileges. Did you have a presentation you wanted to show, or did you just want to speak about the maps?
It'll be a little bit more informal. I have a PDF that I can walk you through, and then more open for questions and answers and just ponderings and next steps. So I'll share my screen.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, you should be able to see a map. We'll start there.
Yep.
Okay. So just a little bit of background on the 2 maps that Kim sent out to the group. I'll open these up here. So some of the questions that Ag and Open Space has been pondering, as well as our partners at the county through the Watershed Task Force, and I know certainly the Forest Working Group, is having an understanding over the past 3 years, what are the impacts to vegetation across the landscape, especially within the fire affected areas. And so I put together these 2 maps that have just some helpful summary statistics. So the one that you're looking at here shows the 2017 Sonoma Complex fire footprints with the Pocket, Tubbs, and Nuns, as well as the Kincaid, and then the 2020 Glass and Walbridge and our Little Myers fire out on the coast. And the first step of the analysis that at least I've participated in, and there are likely other projects going on in the county as well, is to do just a first screen to see what's the distribution of vegetation within these areas, and how, what's the relative percentage of, say, conifer forest or hardwood forests that are within the fire perimeter. So here, one thing that I know Kim and I clued in on and thought was interesting was that 49% of the shrublands that exist within Sonoma County have been within a fire footprint over the last 3 years, 38% of our hardwood forest. So this gives us, some preliminary information about what's happening on the landscape and what the implications might be for either future vegetation management or addressing some of the impacts to these ecosystems. So this is from a vegetation perspective. And then from a land ownership perspective, this has been useful in communicating, certainly with our Board of Supervisors, but others in the county, about what the impacts are to our public lands, as well as lands that are protected by either a conservation easement or an open space easement, where from ag and open spaces perspective, this is where we have a relationship with the landowner. And so we're able to assess the impacts to the properties and connect landowners with resources and provide that service sort of via liaison. So this is also just sort of informational. But what I wanted to share with you today, which is newer work that Ag and Open Space has been doing with the Watershed Task Force, is drilling down kind of one step further. Let me make sure we scroll up to look at not only what are the types of vegetation that have been within the fire footprints, but to assess the burn severity specific to those vegetation communities within the fire. So we know across all of these fires, in some areas there's large swaths that burned at pretty high severity. We'll open that up. So this is the glass fire here. Areas in dark red burned at high severity, meaning that a lot of the above ground vegetation was burnt, and there are impacts to the soil that changes composition, make it less, make water less able to penetrate, and have implications for erosion and debris flow risk. So we're interested in understanding, looking at burn severity by vegetation type, using the fine scale vegetation map to have a more nuanced understanding of what the vegetation impacts are within the burned areas. Some of the areas didn't burn at all, what you're seeing in green. And so it's helpful to know then that those are likely areas where we don't need to focus either restoration efforts or don't necessarily need to make contact with a landowner, because we don't have concern either from a vegetation ecosystem health or erosion risk perspective. So just to kind of break down the analysis that I did with the Watershed Task Force, we looked starting with the Walbridge fire, and then I repeated this for the Glass fire. Did a GIS exercise that's quite simple, where you intersect this soil burn severity layer, which comes from the Forest Service through the Watershed Emergency Response Team report. These data are publicly available. Intersect the soil burn severity layer with the fine scale vegetation map from the Sonoma Veg Map program, and then get to play with the data. That's kind of the best, most exciting part. So to share what this looks like, I'll open up this PDF. So first, intersected the soil burn severity with a fine scale vegetation map. So we can ask questions like, what is the percent area by soil burn severity by different forest life forms? Or if we want to drill down and just look at hardwoods, what's the relative amount of different hardwood species that burned at different severity, etc. So and I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit fast, so if you need to slow down, let me know. But looking at the glass fire, I find that this graphical representation is most useful. So if we look within the entire fire footprint area by soil burn severity, we can see that the glass fire footprint area is dominated by conifer and hardwood forest. And then within that, so 30% of the glass footprint is conifer forest, and about 12% or so of the entire glass fire footprint is conifer forest that burned at moderate or high severity. And this is really important information to know because in many of these cases, a high severity burn in a conifer forest is likely leaving dead standing vegetation that is either a risk from a hazard tree perspective or could pose potential erosion sedimentation issues in the future. And as the future fuel hazard, you've essentially left fuel on the landscape that could contribute to high hazard conditions in the future. So the Watershed Task Force is using this information kind of both graphically and in a map form to identify areas for different management implications where we've got a high severity burn, and then evaluating the type of vegetation that's present and what does that mean for that landscape. I'm gonna look at the chat real quick because I saw a couple of questions. If I can figure out how to do this. Ooh, participants, no.
Allison, I think that the chat questions were, does this take into consideration at all other data like wind slope aspect?
This doesn't. So this is just an initial look, not trying to explain the patterns that we're seeing, but just to kind of get a baseline understanding of what are the assessment of the vegetation. Is it likely that that stand has been burnt and or the seed bank has potentially been destroyed, and what does that mean? But not trying to correlate or understand why that particular stand was impacted in the way that it was. If that makes sense. So, and I can share this PDF with this group as well, so you can dig in further. But the first slide that I shared with you is just by life form vegetation class. So we've got these categories: conifer forest, mixed conifer hardwood forest, but then drilling down to specific fine scale map classes for conifer and mixed conifer hardwood. You can see within the conifers, within the glass fire footprint, dominated of course by Doug fir, and that less than 1% burned at moderate or high severity, and then can target those areas for field observations or potential treatment. So this is looking at shrub vegetation classes, hardwoods. So here, California Bay, Coast Live Oak, and Oregon White Oak dominating the glass fire footprint area. So the first step that we did was looking across the entire landscape, and then there was interest by the Watershed Task Force to look specifically within riparian areas. So here we clipped the data down to focus on within areas within 200 feet of a stream center line, and generated stats by watershed. So watershed groups can then evaluate what's the total acres of riparian area within a watershed, and what is the severity of the burn within that area. So we can start to quantify, both how many landowners, when we look at this from a landowner perspective, but coming up with costs for potential treatment using these acre values. So here, just a plot with the riparian area, looking at the distribution of soil burn severity by vegetation type. Doug fir forest again dominates the riparian areas within the glass fire, and this is the distribution of soil burn severity across all Doug fir within the riparian area. So, a sizable number of acres, 1,700 or so, that burned at moderate to high severity, where the county may be focusing their efforts. And then one final swipe of the data. Have been working with Permit Sonoma, Robert Aguero and John Mack have been interested in looking, kind of taking the combination of the vegetation type, so conifer forest, and the soil burn severity, high severity, and assigning that pair a resistance class. So if we're looking at a conifer forest that burned at high severity, according to fire ecology literature, local knowledge, would that type of burn in a hardwood forest or in a conifer forest indicate, or would it be, would the system be able to respond on its own to that type of burn? Is it a stable system, or is it less resistant to that degree of burn? And then what are the management implications? And so we've gone through and assigned a soil burn severity vegetation resistance pair across the glass fire. And what you're seeing here on the screen is the outcome of that analysis, where we have vegetation types that are considered less resistant to a high burn in red. In orange are vegetation communities where the soil burn severity was high, but they're actually tolerant of that, that degree of burn, either because it's a knobcone pine and it's actually dependent on fire for its life cycle, or it is a shrub class that responds well to high or moderate severity because it's able to resprout from its base. So classifying each of the vegetation community types, putting them into these categories to focus efforts, again, using both maps and graphs to evaluate where there might be a need for targeted land management. And that's all I wanted to share today. If there's questions or thoughts on how we could use this information or make it available to folks who are interested, be happy to hear.
This is awesome, and I think it's going to be really useful in the CWPP analysis also.
I'm going to take a quick look. I finally figured out where the chat was, so now I can read these.
I have a question. When you assigned the resistance, and if you were looking at the shrubs, for instance, and saying, well, the certain type of chaparral can handle it, were you looking at how frequently it burned? Because certain plant communities can sustain a burn every 30 years, but not every 5.
Yeah, that's a great question. We did not take that into consideration initially, but that was brought up by the Watershed Task Force and highlighting areas that burned in both the Kincaid and the Glass Fire, or both the 2017 fires where there's overlap, and wanting to understand more about what could be the future of the shrublands or chaparral and other vegetation communities in those areas. That's a next step that we're interested in exploring. I see Brooke asks if this type of analysis will be done for the Walbridge fire. Yes, we repeated this for the Walbridge fire, and it's been done for the Glass fire, and are interested in kind of backcasting, since we have the data for the Kincaid and the 2017 complex fires as well, so that we can compare across the landscape the condition of the vegetation.
I have a question about.
Go ahead.
I have a question about the map that you showed with the 200-foot buffer of the stream center line.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering how closely, how finely can you see the creeks on that map? Because we don't, this is for a short-term purpose. We don't have the WERT maps yet. And we're trying to make sure that we're addressing the toxic runoff that's close to the stream. So can that map show us a fine view along Mark West Creek?
It can. The data that I used, let me turn this off and turn this on, and then we'll zoom in. So the stream data that we're using is derived from a high resolution LiDAR data set. For some reason, this isn't turning on. And so we have that approximates the thalweg of the stream, and it's really quite accurate. We've evaluated these data in the field and find them to be pretty spot on in terms of identifying the true sort of center or thalweg of the stream. So those are the data that we used to generate these buffers.
And I'm wondering how quickly that information might be available to us, as we are right now trying to get wattles around the burn sites before more rains come.
Mm-hmm. This is information that I'm certain I'm thinking about the best way to share it. I think an interactive map interface is probably the most useful, as opposed to a static PDF map. But yeah, this is information that Ag and Open Space can share with members here. And we've generated these data for the Watershed Task Force for that very purpose, as one of the components of an analysis to focus erosion control efforts.
So if it's shared, you're saying it's shared with the Watershed Task Force. Is it also shared with the nonprofit organizations? I didn't get the impression that Sonoma Ecology Center had access to this yet.
They do not have access. I don't believe they have these data layers. They have the products of an analysis that we did using these data that's in table form with property information, but I'm not sure that they've been provided these specific data sets.
Can they? My next question, Allison. How can we get this my next question, I think Dee was asking the same thing. So how can we get this very quickly, or can we?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I'll chat with our GIS coordinator, Alex Young, and see about options for hosting these data in an online environment so that they can be accessed publicly.
Right.
But within the next handful of days, I'd say by early next week.
Great.
That would be wonderful.
This is fantastic work, Allison, and I really, really, really love you and the district and everybody that's, dedicating their lives to providing this information that is just so vital, as Lynn is illustrating.
And I'll make a pitch again. One of the challenges in disaster response is it's not really a challenge so much. It's wonderful. There's a lot of good work happening, but trying to keep on top of who's doing what and where, and
yes,
how many times should we all be reaching out to the same landowner? So I'll sort of share these data with an ask as well, that if there's an opportunity for information exchange between this group and the Watershed Task Force, and I think DU had asked, the Watershed Task Force is primarily made up of folks from Sonoma Water, Regional Parks, Ag and Open Space, and Permit Sonoma. And there are a few subgroups of the Watershed Task Force. I support the Ecosystems Working Group. There is a Geohazards Working Group and a Community Outreach Engagement Working Group. And we're seeking funding for erosion control. We're installing signs throughout the burn areas to notify landowners where there are at-risk areas, and sending flyers, and doing general outreach after an event. So this is the work that I'm doing is one element of a larger body of work by the county to evaluate conditions and work with landowners on their properties.
Well, Allison, on behalf of the Forest Working Group, we'd really like to thank you for joining us today, and all the incredible work that you're doing both for the district and the county. This is really valuable information, as we all recognize, and the amount of data that's coming out of here, and being able to interpret it for people who are unfamiliar with how the layers can be stacked up to give us this valuable information is super, super helpful. So thanks very much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll probably, Kim, is it best to be in touch with you about getting information to the working group?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Okay, great.
All right, folks. Adriana, do you want to close this out?
Sure. Yeah, that was amazing, Allison. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this next. Yeah, I think, let's see if we can, do you mind stopping sharing your screen?
Yeah, let me do that. There you go.
Just so we can see each other and say, thanks everyone. Great to see you all this month. Thanks for all of your help on all of our outreach topics. And so looking forward to seeing you hopefully at our December workshop. And we'll be in touch between now and then. So have a good rest of your week and take care.
Thanks, Adriana, for doing
Bye,
such
everyone.
a great job.